What's going on, everyone? My name is Nicholas Merton here at Data Dash, and today is April 2nd of 2020. Well, folks, I hope you are having a fantastic day wherever you are, and in today's video, I not only want to spend some time to talk about the continued strength we've seen in cryptocurrency markets as Bitcoin has rallied back up to around $6,700, but along with that as well, I want to spend some time to talk about the global economy, and more specifically the U.S. economy, as just in this week alone, we've seen jobless claims spike up to 6.6 million people. Now, this number itself might be confusing to some people, the claim of jobless claims, so I want to go ahead and talk about the severity of this and compare it to the expectations for what we had and what this means for global markets. All right, now outside of that as well, we've also got an interview with Aaron, who is the founder of Blockdown, a online virtual conference that's being hosted during all of this time where most of us are quarantining and staying inside. Gives people an opportunity to network and to see a lot of great speakers in the cryptocurrency space, from people like myself to also people like CZ and Da Hong Fei. So we've got a lot of interesting people to take a look at later on in regards to the conference. But I want to go ahead here, take a look across the board for the market here. We can see the vast majority of cryptocurrencies in positive territory, with very few in neutral or negative territory. We can see again a good amount of altcoins across the board. Energy being one of the leaders here in the top plays, and across the board here, not many keeping up here with Bitcoin. Very key point to bring up across here. Only a few select altcoins, even Icon as well, doing nice, as well as some of the larger plays like Tezos. But I want to go ahead here, take a look at Bitcoin. Bitcoin holding back up to its relative highs here that we had back at the end of March, where again Bitcoin was riding around $6,800, $6,900, and right now it's looking very much like we might be building an ascending triangle. I've had this drawn on my chart here, I think for the last 2 or 3 days, as it started to become clear here that we were formulating a higher low here, as we did over here and over here. So I think in this case, again, we're building up here for something over the next couple of days. And the point that I really want to drill here is that not only do I believe we can get above this line of resistance from the past previous high here, at least the relative high, but along with that, I do believe that it's going to be a rally over the next coming weeks to anywhere around 9 to 10,000 as we go towards the halving event going into May. I really do believe that's possible, guys, because we've not only had 3 weeks of consistent green here. All right, we've seen that when we set a low along this line here, we tend to get moving on Bitcoin, right? Take a look back here, and also along with that, take a look back here, right? And I think that, again, with anticipation into the halving event, you could easily see prices rise up. Now, I do believe that it's not going to lead to an ultimate breakout for Bitcoin going to 12, 15, 20K. I think what's likely going to happen is we're going to hit resistance here again. And over the next coming months, really going into maybe the summer, we might just kind of push sideways in this case, maybe not going all the way down here, but setting a higher low, right, off of the line of resistance here, in the upper area here. Again, what we tend to see here is that when you're in a wedge like this, or this is a neutral wedge, there's no bullish or bearish narrative here, right? Yeah, sure, generally we could probably assume that it's probably going to go up, but again, we don't want to assume that when it comes to wedges. What we want to look for, though, are the signals that the market is going to give us through price as to whether or not this is going to be a bullish wedge or bearish wedge. And in this case, it's a matter of setting either higher lows or continuously pressing against support and eventually looking like we're going to be breaking down to new lows in this case. You can see that through price, and I can demonstrate that real quick. Basically, go ahead and get our drawing tool here. Actually, I like to use the polyline tool. It's a little bit better. So let's say, for example, we have the rally into the halving event, and afterwards, right, let's say it hits here sometime in May, and we hold up around this range, right, and kind of bounce around, start pressing up towards resistance, get above there, make it support, and then eventually rally higher towards 20,000, right? That is the early signs of a bull rally here, right? We're setting the higher lows. We're not coming back down to retest this line of support. And that's actually a good thing, because for multiple times we can see price holding up here and showcasing that, hey, buyers aren't waiting until 6,000 or the upper 5,000 range. They're buying now, right? That's what we want to see in price. As much as I think everyone loves a cheap Bitcoin, you know, at the end of the day, eventually it's not going to be cheap, right? And that's what we want to see after a post-halving event, that supply and demand is showcasing that there's a dynamic where there's too much demand at the moment versus the available supply after the halving. What would really be bad is if we came down here, we kept pressing along the support without really showing much retest of the resistance, and then eventually breaking down here, and again, seeing some kind of terrible event for Bitcoin. Again, I'm not going to say that it isn't possible, but I really don't think it's likely, especially with the kind of shock that the halving event is going to have for Bitcoin. Okay? So just wanted to emphasize that. In the sense of altcoins, guys, I don't want to analyze things too much. Ren doing okay here, continuously making small gains day by day. Ethereum sitting at nearly $140 or maintaining its 2 million Satoshi mark. Along with that as well, Chainlink maintaining its line of support, right? No need to really look at the individual charts. Most of them are holding up here over the last few days or last week or so, ever since we had the crazy sell-off across the board in crypto a little under a month ago. I'm going to go ahead here, though, and talk about equities. And again, we understand that crypto is showing some resilience here, and it's showing some pretty stark resilience because of not only probably anticipation for the halving event, but also its ability, and I believe over the next couple of years, to possibly serve as a hedge against what's going to be going on in the sense of traditional markets. And that first has to do with us understanding and asking the question of whether or not have we seen the bottom, right? A lot of people are going to rush to the conclusion because this was one of the more stark sell-offs in the sense of the pace of the sell-off that we've ever seen in history. It was worse than 1929. And a lot of people are curious as to whether or not we've seen a bottom in markets. Is this the end of the supposed recession, right, in regards to equities? Well, I'm going to emphasize why I believe that it may be a short-term bottom, but I want people to understand and make it very clear, folks, that this is not just a recession, it's a depression. And it's not something I'm happy about, right? It's just me simply observing what's going on and really thinking about it on a conceptual basis. So hopefully you guys can bear with me here and just kind of hear me out. And again, you might agree or disagree at the end of it, but hopefully you can hear out my opinion on this. So we just had one of the more stark sell-offs or climaxes here for sell-offs that we've ever seen in history. I don't really need to kind of explain it. I think you guys can see here on the chart here as we're taking a look at LMTR. These are the climaxes for sell-side action on a variety of equities. We can see that we've had the largest number anywhere in relevant history here over the last year and a half. But along with that as well, right? In the sense of the overall performance of the indices, as we mentioned, right, this has been the most stark sell-off across the board for the S&P 500, for the NASDAQ, and for the Dow Jones in a single 2-month period that we've ever seen in history in the sense of percentage decline. Never before have we done this. Financials not selling off this bad since as far back as 2008. The energy sector, back in valuations that are sitting around levels that we haven't seen since 2002 and 2003. And this is big stuff, guys. The question is here, though, because, again, we like to buy into fear, is this the bottom? And quite frankly, as much as we have had a stark sell-off, in the sense of percentage decline, we have not reached the capacity that we usually see, even in just simply a recession. And I'm going to propagate the idea here that we're very much entering into a depression. And it has a lot to do with the numbers that honestly sink my heart more than anything. And that's the jobless claims that have come out this week. I want to make it very clear, guys. I know personal people who have filed jobless claims, very close people to me who have been a part of this number. And along with that as well, it's just not cool to see. I mean, this isn't a fun thing to see. I don't care if the jobless claims go up, if it benefits Bitcoin or gold or silver. That's not really my point here. The reason I'm talking about this is to emphasize the very cold and harsh reality that we are about to enter into one of the greatest recessions, and therefore that's why I would call it very much a depression that we've ever seen since back after the Roaring 20s and the Great Depression in the 1930s. Now, what does this number mean? Some of you might say, Nick, out of a country of 300 million people, 6.6 million people, being unemployed, that's not the worst thing in the world. Well, that's not what this number's saying. Right? We already have millions of Americans unemployed. If you want to look at the unemployment numbers, which I think we already know are quite fudged, as it doesn't include people who have stopped searching for work. It doesn't include people who might be working minimal part-time hours, right? The numbers are already bad in the sense of unemployment. But what the jobless claims mean, this is the initial jobless claims, is this is a weekly number of Americans who have been laid off and are filing, in this case, for basically unemployment insurance. Right? They're claiming that, I've been laid off from my job, right? But another thing to emphasize is that the total, right, of 6.6 million does not mean that ever since Corona, we've only had 6.6 million people. No, last week we had 3.3 million. So adding that, right, last week's figures of 3.3 to the 6.64 million of this week basically means that ever since the last 2 weeks of kind of mandatory quarantine for people who are doing non-essential work and social distancing, we have nearly lost 10 million jobs. 10 million people are now very much likely going to be entering into the unemployment line. And this is just the start if we're going to continue this through the rest of April and May. Now, again, I'm not saying in this case that it's the absolute worst idea in this case that we're staying inside, right? Again, it's a necessity to some degree, right? But the problem at the end of the day is that this is going to lead millions of Americans to end up being jobless. And it's a very cold reality. This is what pandemics do. They don't cause recessions. They can cause depressions. Very much so. And the reason I say that is because, when these companies are laying off these mass amounts of Americans, they're not just doing layoffs. Many of them are shutting down operations, right? This is worse than what was expected. The expectations for this week were 3.1 million Americans. We have 6.6. This is not, I'm going to lay off a little bit here, lay off a little there. No, this is full operations being shut down, restaurants being shut down, entire companies making mass long-term layoffs that they're probably not going to bring back for some time. And this is what spawns depressions, because when we go back to work, right, when things reopen in this case, and we shut off this period of time where most people who are non-essential labor are quarantining, not everyone's going back to work. Companies aren't going to willfully reach their hand out and reemploy a lot of these people because many of them will be tight on cash. Whether it be doing to paying general expenses, having to pay their rent or their lease in this case for the property that they're operating out of. Many locations are going to be shut and they're not going to come back for a very long time. And it's a huge chunk of GDP that's going to vanish in the blink of an eye. Expectations for this quarter are at a minimum 25% decline in GDP. The biggest that we've ever seen in history. Do you think that that's going to be recovered overnight? I can tell you guys, I really don't think so. I really don't think so. And I think that that number will continue to extend more losses over the next 2 or 3 quarters. So this is the kind of stuff that makes me not only confident we're seeing a recession, that we're seeing, however, a Great Depression for the 21st century. And interestingly enough, right, you can see futures are reacting here to the numbers. This was after the unemployment, the jobless claims came out, right? Equities are still holding up quite well here, but I think they're going to start to reflect it when markets open, when people are not just trading futures, when you have real open market liquidity here, right? I think this is just simply a dead cat bounce. And this goes back to, again, this topic of, the selling climax, because it's all a really interesting chart here in the sense of markets versus consumer sentiment. And if you look historically at the index for consumer sentiment, which showcases consumer confidence in the economy, the ability to go out and buy things that you want and do the things that you want, that index has never seen, basically we've never seen a market bottom when that index is still relatively peaking. And we haven't gotten the new numbers yet, but long story short, we're still holding up there in the sense of consumer confidence. So we've got a couple of months at a minimum to go here, and I would say that we've got another 1.5 years, 2 years to really see the worst of this. It's going to set us in a tone here that's going to reshape the way a lot of businesses and individuals think about what their goals are for the next 2 or 3 years, what they're going to work towards over the next 2 to 3 years. It's a domino effect. One person's lost income is spending that's not going to a business, right? We want the cycle of the economy to be flourishing, but you can't get that when people aren't getting paid. So, anyways, I've talked about it enough, guys. I think we know what's going to be coming up here. It's going to be the Federal Reserve taking very sharp measures in the sense of stimulating the underlying economy. I think more than anything, in order to see hope here for the average economy, is that we're going to be bailing out the people a lot more than we are businesses. I like the restructurings they've done to the bailouts, so it can't be used for stock buybacks, a few restrictions like that. But I still don't see the emphasis here on getting money into the hands of Americans. And even at that, right, at the end of the day, this kind of inflation and the negative interest rates that are being looked at right now, that are probably going to be integrated in the next couple of months, that are going to penalize savers in this case for having money in a bank account, I think are going to lead a lot of demand here for something like Bitcoin. And it's not, again, because I think, oh, Bitcoin, ultimate hedge, right? It's going to fight against volatility. No, Bitcoin is extremely volatile. But the thing about Bitcoin is that through the halving event, alongside gold and silver, it will likely be going up. And anything that's going up that isn't penalizing you for having your wealth in it, like a negative interest rate is in a savings account, and that isn't being printed into oblivion, provides a safe haven, whether it be in the short term or long term. And that's why I drill constantly that these three assets are going to be key. They are outside the realm of monetary policy and government policy. So anyways, that's it in the sense of the market analysis, guys. Let's go ahead and dive into this interview with Aaron about his conference. Alrighty, everyone. So in today's video, we're going to be sitting down with my good friend Aaron, who I've gotten to know for a long time in the cryptocurrency space. And we're going to be spending some time to talk about his new upcoming virtual conference, Blockdown 2020, which is going to be not only bringing a bunch of people from the cryptocurrency space, a lot of well-respected names during this time of global pandemic, but along with that as well, it's going to be bringing about an opportunity where we can come together and network virtually across the world, as travel has been definitely cut short. So Aaron, it's a pleasure to have you, man. Thank you for coming on, and I'm excited to hear a little bit of details as to how you guys are going about this, because my understanding is you're going pretty creative with your guys' approach to running this virtual conference.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, Nicholas, thanks so much for having me. Great to be on the show. Obviously we're hosting Blockdown 2020, April 16th, 17th. We were actually hosting the Istanbul Blockchain Week. As you know, you were going to be one of our keynote speakers there. And, we did a lot of work, right? We made some great connections with some top tier speakers. We built a huge community. And obviously, unfortunately, we had to cancel it, of course, because of the global pandemic. And, we saw Paris canceled, Istanbul canceled, Korea canceled. And, as somebody that works in the industry, as you know, we actually need a place to come together and network and, do business and basically help each other achieve the success that, that we all would love to achieve. And, so this whole virtual, conference came around very quick, obviously because we're focusing on Istanbul. And we really felt that we saw the lockdown coming a long way up. Being in Turkey, we already had Iran actually close its border to Turkey months ago now. And so I saw this coming a mile up, and I knew that people are going to be, isolated. They're going to need that communication. And also, maybe some family members, unfortunately, might get sick. So how can we give the blockchain community something back, something to look forward to at the end of each month, potentially? And this whole Blockdown idea came into our heads. And then we kind of just kept going with it, right? We have some really cool functionality in terms of the 3D roundtables and 3D networking. So you literally create a Sims kind of avatar of yourself. So it's not VR, it's 3D on the web. And you can go down, so you can sit down, you can meet people at the table in your 3D character. It's you use your own voice, and it's just a really nice way to really give that virtual element right to it. And then we have these live illustrations as well. So every keynote speaker and sponsor will be obviously speaking. You can see live illustration being drawn based on their speech, which will then be shareable on social media, which obviously you can check out whether you have a ticket or not. And there's so much more to it than that. So we'll get into that, I guess, later on. But just really keen on building something that just brings the community together at a time of, when we all kind of really, really need something like that.
Absolutely. I think it's like you said, man, there's a lot of issues that come to mind with what's been going on. Obviously, most conferences have had to shut down, so it's really cut out the quality speakers and the networking opportunities that have made the crypto space what it is. But along with that as well, most people are just simply shutting down and not providing an alternative. And even if someone's going out there and trying to do a virtual conference, it can be a bit different than what it's like being in person. So I think taking those extra precautions to make sure that it feels like it's in person, it's much more personable, and you actually get to express yourself in some some way through a virtual interface, I think that's going to be really big. And I think it's cool just to hear some of the things that you guys have done. So to build on that, again, what's going to be some of the biggest standout aspects here for the conference? I know you have a lot of big name speakers coming, I think, as well. Along with that as well, you've got a lot of awesome opportunities where people can network. So what's it just going to generally feel like for a lot of people?
Yeah, absolutely. So to do this, of course, we wanted to make something different. We wanted to be one of the first people into this, companies into this space to actually make it feel like a festival kind of thing, right? So, okay, Nick, you guys might be speaking on one stage. We've got somebody else speaking on another stage. We've got a networking party going on. We have a virtual exhibition area, right, in case you're getting bored of one of the speakers. So it's just like you'd be at an event. Okay, I've had enough of the talks now. I want to go and do some networking. I want to go and check out the booths. There's going to be this all-encompassing, festival kind of thing of blockchain and cryptocurrency, which you'd expect at a normal conference. And like you said, like networking and interactivity is so important. So we're going to have live AMAs straight after every speaker's talk. We're going to have polls, interactive polls that will be popping up on the screen that you can vote for using your smartphone or just on the web as well. So really bringing that interactivity is just going to be so important. It's really important for us that it's not just everyone just watches Zoom, kind of thing, and that's just like one-way interaction. And then in terms of the speakers, yeah, I mean, we've delved into our network. Like I said, we've got CD doing a keynote speech and a live AMA, which is going to be really interesting with the news that came out today, obviously with the acquisition of CoinMarketCap. And then also we have like Eric Voorhees doing a fireside chat with our friend Robert Beadles. We have some panels, obviously to do with COVID-19 and how blockchain is going to help, come up with some solutions that can help with that, of course. And we'll be having some really like kind of VIP roundtables, thought leadership discussions on social impact, DeFi, privacy. So there's really something for everyone to get involved in, and that's the key thing: is that inclusivity, getting everyone in, and really building out your network from there. And then just the final point is that we're going from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. in European time, so we're going 12 hours straight, 2 days in a row. 24 hours of great content, and we're doing that to really bring again the whole inclusivity vibe. So 9 a.m. in Europe is 4 p.m. in China. Obviously, those guys haven't been able to come into a conference circuit in the West for a few months now, so it's really important to bring those guys in. And then as you go through, obviously, European time covers East Coast and West Coast. So we really are going to be a global conference. I'm sure attendees will meet some great new contacts.
Yeah, I think it's like you said, Aaron, it's not only beneficial that this isn't something that requires your ability to travel to a specific geographical region to be able to network, but along with that as well, having it on a 24-hour basis, it not only provides time for you to jump in later or maybe earlier than others, but you can always come back as well. And I think that, having this structure and stuff is really going to change the way we think about conferencing, because quite frankly, if you can make it personable and you can have quality speakers and actual educational opportunities as well as networking opportunities, it may be much more rational to start doing virtual conferences like this than having to travel, halfway across the world or into the other side of the world just to meet a few people or to hear one speaker.
Yeah, well, it's getting very topical as well, isn't it? With the social, the impact that obviously everybody flying around has on the climate, climate change. And, we're seeing more and more of that getting discussed in the media, and that's getting more and more, at the forefront of people's minds. And then obviously, even from a financial perspective, it looks like, unfortunately, we're going to be going through a recession soon. For the price of going to one event, if you went to virtual events that are well thought out and have great content, then, you could probably go to 10 or 20 for the same price. So it does make sense. It's going to be very interesting how this whole, unfortunate pandemic is really going to push forward, our society in terms of remote, as we're already seeing, everyone having fun on Skype together and, education going online. It's really going to accelerate their progress now, and we're hopeful that blockdown can be a key part of that in the blockchain conference area.
Absolutely, man. I think the best result out of all of it, especially during this time where people are going to be tight on money, it opens it up to more people. It really does. And I think, again, any kind of drawdowns from having an online conference and stuff are outweighed by the new kind of innovations that are going to come up that might make the experience even more valuable. I think the ability to share files instantly, to be able to be in a digital interface right away and start showcasing what you're working on. And as you said, just the freedom of it, the kind of social community built online is going to be really big. So, and for people who might be interested in the sense of just kind of understanding, more information about the conference, who's going to be speaking, and just kind of getting in tune with it right now, what are the best ways that people can actually get engaged with the conference?
Yeah, of course. So yeah, just check out our website, www.blockdownconf.com. That's CONF. And then yeah, same thing for our Telegram. I think it's Blockdown 2020 to join the Telegram. We're announcing a keynote speaker every day as a surprise for everyone. So feel free to jump in and find out who that is. And yeah, like you said, you can get your tickets. Obviously, we have a good discount code for Data Dash community. So it would be great to see everyone there.
Yeah, absolutely. Just to let you guys know, we'll have that in the description down below to get 20% off on your tickets. The cost alone is already really relatively cheap, as Aaron was talking about and stuff. I think this whole format of virtual conferences is going to be really exciting. I think it's interesting for you as well, Aaron, because I've seen you go through this journey of preparing for Istanbul, and I think this is going to be an even more interesting challenge than doing a physical real world conference, because it's really one of the first of its kind, I think, in this space. So
Yeah.
I'm proud of you, man. I'm happy to see that it's been going well. And for those of you who are interested, definitely check out the link down below. I'll be speaking there alongside many other great people in the cryptocurrency space who I admire. And Aaron, thank you for not only taking the time just to talk about it, but also thank you for taking the time to hopefully bring the community together. It's very valuable, I think, right now. I think we're all kind of craving a little bit of the ability to network and socially interact with one another.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really looking forward to meeting the whole community there, specifically the Data Dash community. So yeah, keep in touch and hopefully see you there April 16th, 17th.
Awesome, man.